Hey, this is WhyBeAre with BeamNG.drive, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Cherrier FCV. More specifically, we're going to be focusing on the Cherrier Vivace. So this is the most basic version of the vehicle you can get. That's what it looks like on the outside, and here is what it looks on the inside. It has a massive touchscreen on this thing. It's so big, in fact, I feel like you could drive without even looking at the road. So if you just want to really look closely at the interior like this and not even look directly at the road, it might work. Let's see, can we take a right corner right here? Right now, churn. Yeah, there was a little bit of a crashing noise, but we made it through. So yes, the GPS is big enough for you to drive without even looking at where you're going. But that also gives you a good look at the lower section of the interior right there. I really love this steering wheel. Like, circular steering wheels are so boring. This one is so oval. It looks like an oval racetrack. It's so neat. And also, with this being a four-door vehicle, we also have the seats in the back. 3 seats back there. And now, let's go ahead, take a quick look at the gauges, because I wasn't really focused on those earlier. So you see they light up, and depending on your driving mode, they will change colors. So if you get sport mode, it goes into bright red instead of the regular blue it had. Then you have no assist mode, which is great. It's just a bunch of different colors that it can be. Now, back to the outside. So, whoa, where am I? I don't even know where I am anymore. I haven't been looking at all at the road. It's amazing I haven't crashed worse yet. So anyways, with this version of the vehicle, it has a 3-cylinder engine, which makes about 100 horsepower. Which means 0 to 60 is a little bit over 10 seconds. Not very appealing to me. This one is too slow for me to really like driving it. But it is perfectly suitable for crashing into things, as we are doing right now. Although really what's happened is I've ruined the wheels, so we can't steer anymore. I'm going to the left, you can't tell. So that's probably all the crashing we're going to do with this one, because we have a lot of other versions to look at. Next up is the 110D. This is the base model, but with a diesel engine. And this is a 4-cylinder engine, and it costs more than the normal 110, but it's actually slower because it's quite a bit heavier. Power-wise, the engines make the exact same horsepower. In fact, the diesel actually has more torque than the gasoline one, but it's also 100 pounds heavier. So again, too slow for me to enjoy driving it. That's why it's going into the ocean. And then you get a real nice look at it as it slowly falls to the bottom of the sea, never to be seen again, unless, of course, you hit the reset button and bring it all the way back up, and then go to the next version of the FCV, which is going to be the 160. By the way, if you're thinking the numbers might have some relation to engine size, they do, but not directly. The number you see is about how much horsepower the vehicle makes, but sometimes the rounding is very generous. For example, there's one that has 403 horsepower, so instead of being the 400, they say, nah, let's just round up all the way to 410. Still better than the Germans, though. Their naming schemes are a disaster nowadays. Also, fun fact, this one has a 1.6 liter engine, so it matches up perfectly with the name, purely by coincidence. And I would say this is the first one that's fast enough to be enjoyable to drive. Now, can we get out of here? Going forward, obviously not going to do anything. How about going in reverse? Oh, yeah, we can keep on going, right? Great, because I have a fun fact for you guys. Kind of ironic fact. This one is labeled as the high-end model, yet somehow there are like 28 versions after this that are even higher end models. Don't ask me how that works, but in the game it's called the high-end model with a 4-cylinder engine. And you can quote me on that. But in the end, we had a 60% increase in horsepower by adding that 1 cylinder, and that is the most noticeable jump in power between all of the models. And that's enough looking at the underside of the vehicle. I want to take a look at the top side so we can see what the damage did. So nothing too severe. Question is, does it drive? Answer is no. I am trying to steer to the right. It is going to the left. It wants to go into the water just like the other one, but I say no. We're putting those brakes on and going to the next one, which is the 150D. So yeah, we're going down a number, but this one's more expensive than the 160. So technically, it would be an upgrade from the one we were just driving. I would never pay money for that upgrade. Give me the gasoline-powered one with an extra 10 horsepower, because this one is just below the line of enjoyable to drive. Like I said, the 160 is just there. You go to a 150, that 10 horsepower, actually in this case, I think it's more like 15 horsepower, It's noticeable. And it's just not there for me to be enjoyable. It's still enjoyable to crash though, right? Yep, here's a tree. Say hello to the tree. And that was actually a really dramatic crash. I'm surprised we landed on our wheels so well. Looks like we still have some steering. Can we get back onto the road? We got that torquey diesel. It can pull itself upright, no? No, it can't. I lied. It was just wishful thinking there. I should also mention all the vehicles we've seen so far are purely front-wheel drive. There are some all-wheel drive versions, but we'll get to those later. Kind of interestingly, aside from the base model, the tow rack is always all-wheel drive. And then for the Vivace, you have to get to a really high-end one to get that all-wheel drive. Speaking of base model, the 150D and the 160 are the first ones that come with a DCT transmission. The base models are only available in manual, which to me also says they probably wouldn't have been sold in the US. The US would have none of that. The only place you can get away with selling only a manual is in the higher end sports cars. That's the only way it flies in the US. Anyways, there's some damage, and now we'll bring it back up to the road and go on to the next one. And the next one is where things start to get a little bit more fun. And this one is the 230S. And yes, I skipped the diesel version. We will come back to that, but I like going from gas to diesel as long as we possibly can. Now on the inside of this one, it's the first one with this really cool lit up dash. And at first I thought, is that just like a really spray paint looking thing on the car? But no, that's actually a light. So to prove it, if we put it to dark, you can clearly see this is actually a light, and it goes the whole length of the dash. And then there's even a little bit in the back as well. I've never seen this before in any other vehicle. If you guys know of something that has something like this, feel free to tell me, because it's really unique to me and it's really cool. Also, while we're here, I'm messing with the other lights so you can see those lights on the gauges because I hadn't shown you that. And now back to regular time. I think it's like 92 is about the regular time, and we can go for a drive. And if you remember correctly, this one is a 230S. The S means it's a sport model, so it has a sport suspension, which is going to be great for driving on a dirt road, right? It's actually fine. There is really no problem driving on this road, even with the sport suspension. I'm sure it would not be comfortable, but the vehicle is totally capable of making its way through here. And one fun thing about this version is it backfires on every shift. So go ahead and listen. I just thought that was a fun little feature that was worth pointing out. And the engine on this is actually the same as the 160, but it's been tuned to be more powerful. Quite a bit more powerful, in fact, because that is almost a 50% increase in horsepower from the exact same size of engine. And now that we're on paved roads, we could actually make use of the sport suspension, which includes adaptive struts, and I believe it was the first vehicle in the game to support that because it was a new feature added with the 0.19 update. But you know what's better than adaptive struts? Adaptive crashing. Here's a crash. And wow, that really hit it right in the corner. That's like a super small overlap, and ooh, it looks really, really bad in there for the passenger, doesn't it? That whole thing, like, wow. Let's see what it looks like from the inside real quickly. And actually not as bad as it looks like from the outside. And oh my goodness, look at that cup holder. That cup holder just exploded into some sort of fractal design or something. And then we had a little bit of damage on the back even. The bumper is just hanging off a bit and the lights are flashing like crazy. So that is the 230S, and now we're going to be taking a look at the final diesel option, which was the 190SD, which is very similar to the 230S because it has the upgraded suspension. And it also has the cool interior lights, but they're not as visible as the other one. It's just the color they are is a darker color, so it has to be really dark for you to be able to make them out. The biggest difference though between this one and the one we were just driving is the engine. This one is using a diesel engine once again, and it has about 40 horsepower less than the gasoline powered one. This is also the most powerful diesel version there is. So it's basically, we'll put the best diesel engine we could and make it into a sport model just to say, yeah, we also have a sport diesel model if that's what you're interested in. But there are a bunch of gasoline powered ones that are quite a bit faster than this one is. And we have already ruined the vehicle basically, but it doesn't matter because I want to drop it off a cliff. And hey, would you look at that? It's a cliff. So flying down the cliff and wow, okay. Not what I expected out of that at all. I expected big boom, not whatever that was. Also, there's the underside of the vehicle if you're interested. I figured I might as well show it off at least once. And then we'll try to get this thing back onto its wheels. Grab it from the side, not the center. And it should still be able to drive even after we literally drove it off of a cliff. Yeah, it works fine. You know what might be fun for a crash is if we kind of just get caught on a building. So we're going to just try to graze up on it and cause a big crash. Not quite. Try again. There we go. That thing really spun after impact. And it is completely broken, but here's a look at the damage. We have a little bit of damage on the rear, but we really haven't had a lot of damage on the rear of the vehicle. We got to fix this with the next version we got, which is going to be the Vivace E. Now currently this is the only electric model for the Vivace, but the description reads medium range electric model, which makes me think maybe in the future there'll be a small range electric model and a large range electric model as well. As for performance, it's just a tad below the 190 SD we were just driving because it has about the same horsepower but an additional 500 pounds of weight for all of the batteries. Unfortunately though, it does not have the sport suspension setup, but one positive about the electric version is it seems like it is very, very durable. You can absolutely destroy this thing and it'll keep on driving for quite some time. This thing looks like mashed potatoes right now and it's driving at over 60 miles per hour through a town. And it'll probably drive after this impact as well. So we just gotta find a good spot, like right there. Hitting it right in the corner. Absolutely destroying that front, yet it's still driving somehow. It is so durable. This thing barely even looks like a car anymore. We don't have that much steering though, as you just saw right there. Oh, look at this. The electric motor is literally falling out of the vehicle, yet somehow it still wants to drive. It's actually stuck on the electric motor for a second. I have no idea how in the world this thing can still drive. It's barely driving, mind you, but it's still driving. This thing would be an amazing derby car because it is just unstoppable. I thought for sure it was just going to be able to barely drag itself along, yet somehow it's accelerating more and more and more, and it's going to get up to speed still. And the suspension is just hopping. I don't know what the heck is going on with this thing, how it's attached, but it is. Uh-oh. Okay, it came to a stop. I think we got stuck on the electric motor there. But that was amazing. But that is also the end for the electric version. We're going to move on to the next model, which is called the Vivace S270. And you may have noticed the vehicle names seem inconsistent because you go from a 230S to a S270. So why is the letter S changing locations? Because so far, all the vehicles we saw have just been kind of a slightly tweaked version of the base model to make it more powerful and more sporty. Now, it's changing things up and it's actually quite a bit different visually from the base model. So on this one, it has a slightly wider setup on the front and rear of the vehicle to allow wider tires. The whole rear bumper is different. The brake light is different. Going over to the front is significantly changed. It has the same headlights and some of the grille is the same, but most of it is changed on the front as well. Also worth mentioning, some versions do have a sunroof and then some do not. It just depends what version of the vehicle you have. Now let's go ahead and drive this guy around. So this guy is hot hatch territory. With 270 horsepower, it is fast. And this version has the dynamic exhaust setup. So that means in addition to the changes you would normally have when you go into sport mode in the previous vehicles, you also have it where the engine opens up and it breathes a little bit more. So it probably gives it a small increase in horsepower, maybe like 5 to 10 horsepower, but it makes it just a little bit louder. That's the important part, is it gets a little bit louder. And the interesting thing about this car is all that power is still going to just the front wheels. I remember like 10 years ago, you would have cars like the Mazda Speed 3, which only had like 260 horsepower, and that thing had serious issues with torque steer. Nowadays though, you have all these newer, more modern electronic assists and better suspension designs where you can put close to 300 horsepower, if not 300 horsepower, into a front-wheel drive vehicle, and you won't have any significant problems. For example, look at the Type R. It does that just fine. And this one, it does just fine with all that power going to just the front wheels. It's time for a big collision. We're going to be going a little bit over 100 miles per hour, and we're using 8x slow-mo so we can really see the impact. And that was the perfect speed to watch the impact, I think. And now we'll just let cars go wherever they end up going. So the front right axle is broken on this one. It has no driving capabilities whatsoever. Has quite a bit of damage to it. How does this one do? It looks pretty much the same. But this one actually can drive still. It just got lucky in the collision, I guess, although it's not driving well at all. So let's just finish it off by smashing it into a wall like so. And then we go back to the yellow one, and you can see the lights in the back are flashing. That's kind of cool. But we'll reset him. And now we're going to be taking a look at the first Arsenic version of the vehicle. It is the S310 Arsenic. And Arsenic is a special edition of the vehicle. And on the Arsenic, you get the black roof and the black trim components that go all around the lower part of the vehicle. And these are exclusive to the Arsenic version, so you can easily tell what Arsenic is unless the vehicle itself is black, in which case you kind of have to look a little bit closer. And then finally, you get the Arsenic driving mode, which is basically Sport Plus. So it's sport, but even more sport than sport. Yeah, that makes sense, totally. Also, I don't know exactly how that collision happened. I was just driving along, and before I knew it, I was upside down. Once it gets to the bottom here, we'll see if we can continue driving or not. It's stuck on its side, so let's go ahead and roll it onto its wheels. And then we'll take a quick look at the damage to the vehicle. Doesn't look that bad. Turn it back on, and does it drive? No, surprisingly, it does not drive. You would think the parking brake is on or something, but it is not. That is a dead car. He done. Next up, we have a version that's almost identical to the one we were just driving. It's the Vivace S Gentleman. And the only difference between this one is it's like a police version of the vehicle. I mean, technically, I don't think the Gentleman is the police, but it's kind of like a police vehicle. Speaking of police vehicles, there's also the Polizia version, and they're pretty significantly different. Like, this is the 4-cylinder diesel model. It doesn't have the fancy wider body on it. And then this one over here, it's got the wider kit. It's got 300 horsepower. It's basically a sports car with some police-like stripes attached to it. They both have lights, of course, and sirens you can turn on. They have the exact same sound, even though they have different names on them. Now, I don't know exactly how all of that works, having the different forces and all that, and who exactly the Cherrier are. And yes, it is pronounced or whatever I just said. That's the correct pronunciation. Don't argue with me, I'm crashing. Oh no, we've crashed. How sad, the car is broken. Time to call in the backup. The Polizia are, well, they're not here yet because they got a slow 4-cylinder diesel. But they are on the way, as fast as a 4-cylinder diesel will go. And this one is just comparable to the 4-cylinder diesel we saw earlier, but it's a police edition. I didn't mention it earlier just because I wanted to have both of these guys out at the same time, like I said. And we are not really good at helping, apparently. The gentlemen are the more competent police. The police here are the ones who just crash into things, I think. I don't know. More importantly, next vehicle is the S350Q. It's kind of interesting. This one is not an Arsenic version, even though it has more power than the Arsenics. Now, with it being a Q, there are two possible meanings to that. It could either mean it has all-wheel drive, or it could mean it has a 5-cylinder engine, or maybe even a third, it could mean it has both of those combined. Not really sure which, but either way, this is an all-wheel drive, 5-cylinder engine vehicle, and I love the way 5-cylinder engines sound, so I'll let you guys listen to it as I go through the driving modes. That was a big impact. It was really moving to do that much damage. Anyways, next up is the final production version of the vehicle, which is the S410Q Arsenic. So this one just slaps all of the letters together. I assume the Q, by the way, means it has a 5-cylinder engine. And then again, because it's an arsenic, it has all of the extra black body panels on the roof and the side skirt and all that. And of course, the arsenic driving mode if you wanted to use it. Now I have ruined this a little bit by driving it over that curb, unfortunately, so I don't care what happens to it. It could fly into the trees, and I would be perfectly fine with that. It flew into the trees, and I am perfectly fine with that. And ooh, it hit that tree at a good speed. That was probably like a 40-mile-per-hour impact into the tree. Probably has a nice little dent on the side. Oh yeah, and I'm just making the dent bigger as we fling it into the wall. Come on, get out of there. So there is the damage so far. Can we drive it? Well, not really. The front axle just broke, and when that happens, steering is abysmal. Now, I haven't really given this one its fair shake in actual driving because we were driving it damaged basically the whole time. So, we're ready for round 2. You saw it started in sport mode. Now it's arsenic mode time. It's real sport driving, man. Honestly, the difference between sport and arsenic isn't huge. The difference between comfort and sport is huge because it sounds better because you can hear the engine more. I love hearing the engine. And we are going fast and we are flying. Oh no! Oh! Well, there is some damage directly to the roof of the vehicle, which we haven't had yet. It is, however, immobilized, which means it's time to go to the next version. Now, all these ones so far, they have been production versions of the vehicle. Now we're going to be taking a look at the Rally Asphalt Edition. I mean, we got all these bumps here. The rally car should be perfectly suited for this. And this one is obviously not a production vehicle. It has a roll cage, it has an extra wide body, it has a big old wing, all of which we'll take a closer look at when we get to the race version. Right now, I just want to drive this thing because the body on the rally and the race one, as far as I can tell, was the same, so we don't need to look that closely at both of them. The only major difference is the paint job. And this car actually is working very, very well at driving through these roads because they're not the smoothest roads. As you've seen a couple of times, I flung into the air and flipped over and just annihilated my car. With this one, that has yet to happen, but that could also be because of the areas that we are driving on. I know you guys, though, y'all like annihilating vehicles, so tell you what, have some annihilation. The whole front left tire has just been completely ripped off. But the thing about rally drivers is rally drivers never give up. That was just weight reduction. If you're a rally driver, you're gonna drive faster now because you have less weight. It doesn't matter if you only have 3 wheels. You're a rally driver. You don't give up, even if you probably should because you can't control the vehicle well. Doesn't matter. We're gonna make it to the finish line. What's the finish line? I don't know. Whatever I deem as the finish line. How about the finish line is this straightaway? We go as fast as we can, and then it gets wrecked. Unfortunately, we couldn't go that fast because we were flying through the air. So we're stuck on the rocks, it looks like. And the question is, can we pull the vehicle out using the node grabber? The answer is barely. We really had to yank that thing, and it's flying across the whole area, so we're going to freeze physics. That way you can get a good look at the deformation of the vehicle. And I would say yes. There is quite a bit of deformation on this vehicle, and now it's just going to slowly go into the trees. And that's where it would rest. We could try to drive out of here, but we're just kind of stuck because we only have 3 wheels. So we'll reset it all the way back to the road. And now we're going to go to the rally version's brother, the other rally version. The one we were just driving was for asphalt. This one is for gravel. Now overall, they are very, very similar, but the gravel edition gets you a bunch more ground clearance. And in fact, it has so much ground clearance, you can do things that are more extreme than rally racing. Like, this is quite a bit bumpier. Wow, how did we land that? That's amazing. We can keep on driving. But as I was saying, this is much bumpier than a lot of rally courses would be. But I just want to show you just how capable this vehicle is. Going through here, it's going to bounce us around. We're going to get bounced, but it's going to make it through. And then eventually, once we get through here, we will get to an area it is actually well suited for. But usually, to go through something like this, I would get like a 4x4 pickup truck, and it would work just about as well as this one is. The pickup truck would have a bit more ground clearance to it, so it probably wouldn't get quite as stuck on the bumps and slow down as much. But this thing doesn't care. It has that motivation, that drive. It can go onto its side, bounce onto its wheels, keep on going. It is dedicated to this drive. It's gonna make it to the finish because it is a surprisingly good vehicle at doing that. It is, however, not well suited for paved roads. If you put it on the paved roads, even for just a millisecond, it will flip over. The good news is you can usually get it right back onto its wheels and continue driving like nothing happened. Well, except it is pulling to the side quite bad. I'll fix it up when we get to the actual rally course that I want to be driving on. Well, I call it a rally course, but really it's just a dirt road that feels great for driving a rally car on. And we are going way too fast, so let's just take the impact, let it slide around on its roof, going over the guardrail, and get back onto its wheels. Come on. Come on. Oh, that was so close to keep going. If we didn't lose a wheel, we probably would be able to keep going. So now we have a fresh one. Maybe not quite that fresh after I back it up a little bit and just smash the window out. We have a mostly fresh one. And we're going to take this one onto the rally course. If I can stay on it. Yeah, we just lost the bumper already. We've barely done anything, and we've blown out the rear window and lost the rear bumper. Doing an excellent job here. Oh, now we're rolling over. I swear to you, this car is decent at rallying. I'm just driving really, really poorly right now. In fact, the car has saved me because I rolled over and somehow it's just managed to get itself back on its wheels and keep going. You know what there needs to be a mod of? A vehicle where the whole thing is like a tube, so it rolls over and then it kind of just always rolls back onto its wheels. That'd be great. Somebody make that mod. I will review it. That's just so dumb. Just like the toilet paper tube roll. The giant toilet paper tube that you stick your car into and this the wheels stick out, right? Like an attachment for the vehicle. Anyways though, you see, when I'm talking distracted, I drive better. When I talk about driving, I crash. Although that crash was kind of intentional. So here is a look at the final damage. You can even get a little bit from above. Ooh, that's kind of a cool camera angle. Like, whoa, whoa, whoa. There we go. That's a cool camera angle like that. And now I want to take a look at some of the more track-focused editions, which means we need to go to a racetrack. So how about we use the one at West Coast, USA. By the way, I have absolutely no idea how the Pickle became my stock vehicle, but it is now. Anyways, the first version we're going to look at is the S310 Arsenic Track Day. So this one is based on the 310, but it has a little bit of modifications to the engine, just like maybe a small tune. So it has about 340 horsepower. In addition to that, it has a wing that mounts like directly to the middle of the hat, which looks really cool to me. And then it has a roll cage and a stripped down interior as well. So this thing is pretty good on a track. The handling on this thing is, quite frankly, surprising how well it handles. My first thoughts when I saw this car is 340 horsepower going to just the front wheels. That sounds like a recipe for disaster. It's not. Honestly, it puts the power down perfectly fine, and it's probably one of the best handling cars I have ever driven in this game. Most of the time in the corners, I'm gonna brake too early and go too slow through the corner like that. You have to really bring your braking point farther away than what feels right for this kind of vehicle for it to actually make it through the corners at max speed. That one was a little bit too far, but not by much. That was like maybe 5 to 10 miles per hour too fast, and that was it. And it's great handling, also pretty dang good acceleration. We are up to almost 100 miles per hour because it's running like 36 PSI of boost. That's a lot of boost. Anyways, big impact time, 120 miles per hour. We're going to do 100 times slow-mo on this one, so it's the big slow-mo for the big crash. And then here comes the remains of the car. Oh no, my beautiful wing is falling off. I love that wing. It'd be funny if you could put both wings on a car at once. Like, you could have the wing on the race edition and that one just pile on the wings, make a wing monster. Oh, and yes, we will be taking a closer look at the wing and stuff on the race edition. But first, here's a look at the damage. Probably not too good to be inside of there. And let's go ahead and bring it back and grab the race edition. And the really surprising thing about the race edition is that it is using the 4-cylinder engine still. And this one, it has a really serious wide body kit on it. So it has it on the rear, and then it even has it on the wheels, and you can see just how wide it is, and you can see how much it breathes because you can see the track through the grate right there. And then going over to the front, it has the same kind of deal, extra wide. And then room to breathe. And then just a kind of different front face on it for more cooling. And the wing on this is actually the same as the track day. For some reason I thought it was different, but that's the same wing as far as I can tell, isn't it? Yeah. So anyways, the one we were just driving, yeah, it had a nice upgraded suspension for racing on a track and stuff. And it's one of the best handling cars I've ever had. Yet this one takes it to another level with the wide body kit and an even more aggressive suspension setup. It has a little bit more power too, but not by much. The power output is almost the same. The biggest difference is this thing actually handles better than the one we were just driving. And it brakes really, really hard too. The brakes on this thing go perfectly with the amazing handling. Also, one thing I kind of like is that even though this is a race version, it does have ABS equipped. So I could just hammer on the brakes and I don't have to worry about feathering it like I do on a lot of the race vehicles. Just smash those brakes and you'll be fine most of the time. I forgot how tricky that corner is. It's kind of like Laguna Seca, where Laguna Seca just has a really one iconic corner everybody knows. And that corner is the same way, where it just has a big dip and it's surprisingly tight. Anyways, let's go ahead and get this thing up to speed and get it into a nice big wreck. I want to wreck just the rear of the vehicle, so we gotta do a nice little 180 maneuver here. So e-brake it and bam, right into the rear. And remember what I said earlier? Front wheel drive only. It should still drive. It does still drive. Probably not very good, but we got out of the dirt surprisingly fast. Oh, we're on fire now. That's a bad sign. Cars should usually not be on fire in my experience. Sometimes it's okay. If the fire is like contained inside of the engine, that's okay. That's just internal combustion. That, however, is external combustion, which is never good. Anyways, we're going to take a look at the final version, which is the Vivace Hill Climb. And this one just takes the race edition to another level. It has the 5-cylinder engine and all-wheel drive and the same great suspension setup. Although, if I'm being honest, it actually does handle a little bit worse. But it more than makes up for that with its much faster acceleration. Because this thing almost has 700 horsepower. That's more power than any hatchback rightfully should have. And it's great. Like, you look at this thing, you say, oh, there's no reason a hatchback should be this fast. But then it is. And it's awesome. Just a almost 700 horsepower hatchback with all-wheel drive that'll just rip around a racetrack. Again, not quite as good at handling as the 4-cylinder with only front-wheel drive. I know it sounds kind of weird, but the extra weight over the front, I think, really does make a difference in terms of how it handles. So I guess that's why the race edition only uses the 4-cylinder. But 5 cylinders have some great racing heritage. I know there were some amazing, I think it was a DTM, I want to say, had some really iconic 5-cylinder cars. I can't really remember because it was, it's honestly before my time. It's just kind of stuff I read. But, 5-cylinder engines would do some serious stuff in racing, man. I know they're used in rallying too. All like those really iconic Audi 5-cylinder. I think it was even in Group B they used the 5-cylinder. Yeah, that thing was a monster, man. Here's the thing. Handles great. Sounds great. Tons of power. Overall, it's probably the more fun one to drive between this one and the race one. But the race one is a more competent race car. Anyways, that's going to do it for this video. Till next time, it's WhyBeAre. And remember, if you like or dislike this video, I will know. I can tell by listening to how much the rally versions backfire. So do the right thing, and I'll see you next time.